What is going on, YouTube people? Neo Cards and Comics here. Fresh off the Midway Monster. Today we'll kind of break the show down, talk about my pickups, general vibes, all that nonsense. So like, comment, subscribe. Show itself, fantastic. 350 tables, extremely well promoted. Was very busy both days. We'll kind of get a little bit more into that. Location was really cool. It was in the Best Choice Fieldhouse, which is a gymnasium, but it has essentially multiple basketball courts where they run like tournaments out of constantly. I think there's 8 courts in there. I don't remember. But they wrap around the building. In the center of the building was like a concession stand. So the nice thing was, 2 of my favorite things about the show itself, the tables were on the basketball courts. Anyone that's ever walked one of these big shows for 2 days in a row knows walking on those concrete floors suck. So actually having the hardwood floors to walk on was much easier, just in terms of like how you felt at the end of the day. So that was on point. The second thing that was amazing, absolutely amazing, probably my favorite feature of the actual show venue itself, each basketball court had a couple sets of benches or stands, like, metal bleachers, essentially, only like 3 rows high. And those essentially, think of the show, someone described it as a donut, and I think that's very accurate. The donut hole would be the concession stand, and then around that was a ring of these bleachers, and then the outside, or the body of the donut, is the actual show floor itself. So the bleachers were clutch. It was nice. Like if I saw a card and I wasn't super familiar with it or what it was selling for, versus having to kind of like stop in the middle of the aisle or find a little corner to go walk off into, because I'm not one. I generally don't like to check comps at the table. I prefer to take a couple steps away, do it in a neutral space, and then come back. There was times when I would just go over there and like just sit down for a minute. It was a great place to just kind of sit down and chat with people. Like if you ran into a friend or someone you hadn't seen for a while, you could just kind of migrate over there. There were some trading went down there, but not a lot. I was kind of glad to see people didn't necessarily abuse that space. Like there was no one sitting there, at least that I saw, with like their case open and cards kind of laid out, like trying to pretend that they're a dealer without actually paying for a table. I didn't see any of that. I definitely saw some trading happening, but nothing like crazy. But overall, that was on point. The only negative aspect of the venue was the parking situation, which they were well aware of, and they had a good solution for it. So the parking on site was very limited. They had an auxiliary lot that was probably, 100 yards away, maybe a little bit more than that. So you could either park and walk. It wasn't that bad. That's what I did the first day when I got there. But then they also had a golf cart shuttle service. They had a couple golf carts, the big, super long golf carts, kind of running people back and forth with shuttle stations. So actually took one of those to go back out to the car at the end of the show on Friday. Saturday, I got there early enough that I actually got a spot in the main lot. So this was a Friday, Saturday show with a trade night Friday night. The Friday show hours were like 11 to 12 VIP AM, and then at noon it opened up to the masses. I got in a very early Friday afternoon, right after lunch. I was shocked immediately when I got there, because it had only been about an hour and a half that the show floor had been open, and only 30 minutes of actual like regular person time, that I was immediately sent to the auxiliary parking lot, and there was a lot of cars in the auxiliary parking lot. The show was extremely busy right from the get-go. Like as soon as the doors open, I talked to some people. They said there was a long line of people just to get in. And when I walked in, I was shocked how busy it was for a Friday afternoon. And this is while a lot of people were still working. Extremely busy. Not so much. The nice thing about this venue also was it was very large, and there was enough space for, like, the rows weren't cramped. I never felt too squished or like constantly running into people. It was like the perfect amount of, it was really busy, but not so busy that you couldn't move. I didn't have trouble walking up to any showcase. I might have to wait like a second, but it wasn't like, Saturday at the National, where you can't even get up to certain tables. Like even the bigger names like Mealy Pops and Indy Card Exchange, CC2, the RBI crew, those guys were kind of all together on one wall. That's where a lot of traffic graduated to or migrated to, just because there's a lot of big names and they all had a lot of nice stuff. RBI crew had fantastic stuff. Indy Card Exchange had really nice stuff. Ryan brought nice stuff with him. Mealy Pops had nice stuff with him. Costa Cards was off those guys a little bit. The slab stock guys were walking around. They weren't set up. Like I said, Mojo Sports was set up there, and I'm probably forgetting quite a few people as well. But it was a very heavy headliner show, very heavily promoted. So Friday was extremely busy. The trade night, Friday night was also really good. It was in a community center about 5 miles away from the actual event. Tons of space, very well lit. They had pizza. They had a bunch of giveaways. It was pretty strongly attended. I didn't do any deals at trade night. I laid some cards out. I had some conversations with people, went back and forth on some stuff, but ultimately couldn't decide or just couldn't pull the trigger on anything. There was nothing that I was like really, really wanted to make a play for. There was one card that I actually did kind of want that we came close on, a Luka Purple Optic PSA 10. But we just couldn't, he really didn't want to let it go, and I get it. And I kind of wanted it, but I also didn't want it. We'll kind of talk about that. And then there were some other deals that almost happened, but nothing too crazy. Saturday was busy. I don't know that Saturday felt as busy as the Mad Rush Friday afternoon, but it was very steady. I stayed until about 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. I left. I saw Ryan from Breakout Cards quite a bit on Saturday and also Friday night at the trade night. But it was busy the entire time. It never tailed off. It never got overwhelmingly busy on Saturday, but it was never not busy, if that makes sense. And it was very steady throughout the entire day on Saturday. I got in at 9:30 in the morning on the show floor, and it went until, like I said, I was there until 2:30. Another nice thing they did, they brought Chick-fil-A sandwiches in to sell at the concession stands. That was clutch, just to have a good lunch option so you didn't have to leave the venue. But yeah, Saturday was also very, very well trafficked. There was a lot of people walking around, and like I said, a lot of space to kind of roam around in. And you just never really felt like cramped, which is nice. Some of the shows you go to, they don't have a lot of space, and they kind of squeeze people in. So that was kind of the general crowd. Vibe-wise, walked around, talked to a lot of show attendees, a lot of dealers, met a lot of cool people. Shout out once again to anyone that came up to me and said hello, whether it was someone that I've spoken to in the past or someone that I haven't had a chance to meet yet. That's part of the fun of going to these shows. I mentioned it in yesterday's video. I did not make, air quotes, money on this show. It was, from a financial standpoint, it was a loss for sure, just on travel expenses alone. I sold one card, an Acuna auto, the 5-star auto that I bought in chips. I think I took a $50 loss on that card. Like I bought it for $250 and sold it for $200. Is what it is. I didn't necessarily go to this show to make money. I only bought 2 cards. We'll get to those in a little bit. And they're not like, they're more PC-ish cards than they are something I could potentially flip. Maybe the one I could potentially flip, but we'll talk about that. So for me, it was more about going to kind of get the general sense of where people are at. This was a big show. It was very well promoted, and there was going to be a lot of people there and a lot of names. And I just kind of wanted to go get, where the sentiment at? Where is everybody at right now? Especially leading up, we're a month away from the National now, or about 6 weeks. And I think this was a good preview for what potentially could happen there. Like I said, lost leader, but it's fine. I went, I had fun. I met a lot of cool people, had a good experience. That's all I really cared about. Got some good information in regards to on the content side of things. That's where, like I said, the money that I make from the YouTube channel, I typically put a lot of it back into the YouTube channel. And in this case, that was for travel expenses. So show vibes, it's a lot of what we've kind of been talking about. People are being very targeted in what they're looking for, based off the just, once again, macro. And this is what I saw. Someone else could have went to this show and had a completely different experience. This is what I heard, what I saw myself walking around 2 days and a trade night. People were being very targeted about what they were willing to put cash in for. People were definitely looking to trade. A lot of people were looking to sell to dealers. A lot of dealers were buying. I don't know what comps they were giving because that's not, I usually don't sell to dealers very often. I would rather just try to sell the card myself or try to trade it. So I don't know, where dealers offering 60%, 70%, 80%. I know some dealers have a reputation of paying extremely well. Some don't. It is what it is. But a lot of people, a lot of the dealers that I talked to said a lot of people were looking to sell. A lot of people were looking to trade plus cash into bigger cards. The normal stuff that we've kind of been talking about lately on the channel. In terms of what was hot, football. Herbert, Burrow, Allen. Those were the three names that you heard more than anybody else. By far. Trade night, I laid out a bunch of cards. I had these two, which I picked up, during the year this year, laid out. Almost every person that walked by the table asked about these. I almost traded these away on Saturday. I came very, very close to trading these at Indy Card Exchange for a Luka, and I ended up deciding to pass. And I'm just going to hold on to them most likely until the National, just because there's a wider berth of cards there. This was a very big show, but I think I have a better chance at finding something that I'm looking for at the National. And that's part of the problem. I don't know what I'm looking for. I get this question all the time about, hey, what are you looking for at the show? It's not normally how I go to shows. I usually just kind of go to look to see what pops and what presents itself to me. What's a good deal? What's an interesting, cool looking card? And go from there. I don't like to go in with a narrow focus of, I must find these three cards. Now, last year at the National, that was something I definitely did. And this year at the National, I may do that again, but that show is so big, you do kind of need a little bit of a plan for it. Another interesting thing is what's not in dealers' cases. Walking around the show floor, you did not see a lot of Zion in cases. You did not see a lot of Tatum in cases. You did not see a lot of Trae Young in cases compared to other players. Most likely, I'm assuming anyways, is because people are being very, very stingy with their Zions at shows. You rarely see Zion in cases just because I think everyone's just holding them until the basketball season starts, hoping to get a bounce to recoup at least some money back out of him. So that was interesting. Trae Young, a lot of people are way underwater. That there was some Trae Young on the show floor, but not as much as you typically see. Luka was pretty decently represented on the NBA side, and then you were seeing a mix of the newer guys from this past year's class with product that was just open. Same with Prism Football. I didn't see a ton of that stuff on the show floor. A lot of retail wax, but singles, not so much. I think the nicer stuff is probably sitting at grading right now. And then the stuff that was there was usually quite a bit off-centered. Because once again, dealers like that, if they have something good that looks clean, they're just going to grade it themselves most likely. At least most of them, not all of them. But generally speaking, everyone was looking for football. Dealer pricing. It's the same thing that we've also kind of talked about a lot. Some dealers were very on point. A lot of the bigger dealers were very on point. I thought Indy Card Exchange, Andy's tables, had probably some of the best pricing of the bigger dealers. They were extremely well priced. Ryan Card Collector 2, generally pretty well priced as well. RBI Crew seemed pretty on point. Mealy Pops, I don't remember looking at anything that close to talk specifically on theirs. And then across the floor in general, it was very hit or miss. Some people were pretty reasonable. Some people were not, which I think in most shows you're going to find that. And then I think it's the same thing again. People are willing to spend cash, but you have to be appropriately priced. Also, the stuff that was moving the most frequent was, once again, kind of what we've been talking about and what we've been hearing, 50 to 500. That seems to be the golden window, and especially 150 and under. Not even necessarily value box stuff, but like $50 showcase cards. A lot of people were picking that stuff up. And I think what you see mostly in that range is a lot of PC stuff. People buying PC stuff. and just taking flyers on stuff. And when you get to those lower price points, they're much more willing to do that. Another weird thing that was going on at the same time at this show was the Chicago Sports Spectacular was happening. This show, I guess, from what I've been told, was scheduled first. Chicago scheduled after. It seemed really weird to me to have two really big Midwest, air quotes, travel shows on the same weekend. And this one, like I said, was extremely well promoted. The Chicago Sports Spectacular, I believe, was not well promoted based off of what I've seen and heard. Because I know I barely knew that it was this weekend, and the Midwest Monster had been promoted for months and also had a lot of headliners behind it that were also promoting it. So I was constantly hearing about this show. Whereas the Chicago show, I was not. I was aware that it was happening, but I kept forgetting that it was happening. Everything I heard from that show is that it was extremely lightly attended. I watched some videos of some people that attended that show. We're recording this Sunday afternoon. I watched this Sunday morning, and it looked light. Now, I don't know how it was on Saturday. I think those videos were recorded on Friday. And then I also heard a lot of people that were at the show on Friday, like attendees, were leaving and coming down to this show for Saturday. So I don't know how much of that was the case. But you can't, to run two big shows like that within a few hours of each other just seems like a mistake, because people are going to choose one over the other. And like I said, the Midwest Monster got a lot of pub behind it. Let's talk about pickups. I made two, one on Friday, one on Saturday. The first one on Friday, anyone that's watched the channel for a while, I am a sucker for Topps Dynasty. I seem to have fallen into this niche of 80s and 90s baseball stars, basically the guys that I grew up watching when I was a kid. And my first pickup was a Roger Clemens Topps Dynasty. Obviously, Topps Dynasty on-card autos and game-used memorabilia. I'd actually been looking for a Clemens for a while, but you see him mostly in Dynasty in Yankees and Astros uniforms, and I specifically wanted Red Sox. So I walked across this. The dealer was asking $300 for it. I offered $250 and got it for $275. Fairly reasonable. His Red Sox Dynasty stuff typically sells for around $300-ish, like $290 to $325-ish. So I felt pretty okay paying $275 for this. That's basically a $300 eBay comp, which is right in line with where his Red Sox stuff sells. Don't say that 5 times fast. His Yankees and Astros stuff sells for significantly less. I loved Clemens as a kid. So this was a no-brainer pickup. And like I said, this isn't necessarily a flip. This is just more a grab and hold. And we'll kind of talk about that here in a minute. The second card I bought late in the day on Friday, right before I left. And I was just walking the show floor on one of my umpteenth laps, and I looked in a case, and it was a dealer that I'd walked by his table a couple times before, and I noticed this card. And I looked at it, and I'm like, is that really another one? So the second card that I purchased is a Ken Griffey Jr. Topps Tribute, purple, 2 out of 10 on-card auto. Now, you might be saying to yourself, that looks familiar. Isn't that on your desk a lot all the time already? Yes, you would be correct. This is the same card that I picked up a few months ago, except the one that I have is a PSA 9 with a 10 auto that I traded for, probably 6-8 months ago now. I don't know. I've had this for quite a while. So I saw this one in the case, and I was like, well, I got to have it. He was at 500 on it. I offered 4. We settled on 450. No comps on this card. That's out of 10. But that's, Griffey autos typically go around the 400-ish mark. Tribute stuff actually seems to sell a little bit better. But anyone that knows or that's followed the channel for a while, I've talked about this card a bunch. It is a little bit of a stopper. Like when I lay it out, or when people flip through the case, they always stop and look at this card. So I figured, might as well get another one. Now I have a little bit of flexibility. So if I wanted to move one of these, I could. As of right now, I would keep this one just because it has the 10 auto on it. This one, the auto, I don't think would 10. It would be very close. You could see there is, which is pretty common on Griffey autos. You got to watch this section right here. It looks like it was starting the streak and didn't necessarily fully streak. So I don't know. I think that's very borderline on whether it would 9 or 10. And a 10 auto would be, I'd have to crack it out. Now, I have not looked the card over super close out of the mag yet. I looked it over in hand. You know, corners and stuff look pretty solid, but I haven't given it like a really good look over. But generally speaking, it looked pretty okay. I'm thinking about potentially CSGing this. Just because I think it would look really, really good in their case. We've talked about their cases before, them being crystal clear. And this is kind of a more PC card. I don't know that this being slabbed really swings the value much on it unless the auto 10s. I do think a Griffey with a 10 auto definitely impacts the price quite a bit because a lot of his autos are streaky for sure. Because he's got those big loops, really takes his time with it. But there's really nothing better than a Griffey Jr. auto. Just absolutely stunning. And like I said, so this one did 10 auto. You can kind of see the line looks a little bit better there on the one on the left than on the right. So we'll see. I need to look the card over better and see what happens. But I now have 2 of those, so I'm cornering the market on 2015 Topps Tribute Ken Griffey Jr. purples. I now control 20% of the market, so look out. I can pump and dump the Griffey Topps Tribute purple market, and then retire. I guess that's the new plan for the channel. So that's the other one that I picked up. Things that I came close on: a Lucas Silver Prism PSA 10. I talked myself in and out of. There was a couple Soto First Bowman Chromes there, autos, that I was going to potentially trade for / trade plus cash, whatever. And what I kept coming back to, this was my general sentiment, why not just wait 6 more weeks for the National for most of this stuff? Things like this, fine. I may never run into that card again. I may never run into that card again. There's only 10 of them. Pull the trigger on it, not very expensive. Those 2 cards together cost me not even $700 or around $700 for the 2 of them. I'm fine with them. Those are both, I know Clemens isn't technically a Hall of Famer, but those are 2 Hall of Fame level players. One clearly a Hall of Famer, and both have passionate collector bases, especially the Griffey. So I could tuck those away. They might go down a little bit. They might go up a little bit. It's not the end of the world. I didn't necessarily buy these to flip. The Griffey potentially, maybe, or at least free me up to flip this one, depending on how that one grades if I decide to grade it. But anything modern, ultra modern, I would like ask about something, get potentially interested, and then the voice in the back of my head said, I wonder if this is just going to be cheaper in 6 weeks. And then I just decided to go, you know what? Let's just hold off. It wasn't like, especially like the Lucas Silver, the Soto First Bowman, you can find those. It's not like they're unicorns. They're not white whales where you're never going to see the card again. So especially with the National coming up, I just remain patient on that. I did also inquire about, because now that I have one, Jim Brown, there were a lot of Jim Brown low-grade rookies there. I did ask around on a lot of those. A lot of them were pretty pricey, especially considering what I got that one for. And also a lot of them looked, I was looking at like PSA 4s of Jim Brown rookies, and they just looked destroyed compared to the SGC3 that I have. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just happy with that one, and we'll just kind of let it ride. But if I could have picked another one up on a pretty good deal, I probably would have, because they're very, if nothing else, they're extremely liquid locally. So it would have been one of those things that I could have picked it up and either held on, but would have been fine sitting on it, or I could have easily traded it locally at shows and or trade nights, because those move super, super easy. But good show, fun times. Like I said, even though I didn't necessarily, air quotes, make money on the show, that wasn't necessarily my goal in going. I had a lot of fun, met a lot of cool people, and that's what, like I talked about yesterday, that's what really matters. So next up, I'm very curious. I will be at HeroCon later this week, supposedly a very big Comic Con. I am very interested to see what the vibes in the room are for the Comic Con. Are they similar state of where we are in the sports card world? Just how does that? I've never been to a Comic Con before, so how does that environment work? I've heard rumors of con pricing where prices are jacked to the moon and you can't really get good deals on stuff. I'll be interested to see. A lot of, like I said, the sports card market on the collectibles market side of things seems to lead the charge. It seems to be the spear tip. All the trials and tribulations, up downs, all arounds that we have, when things were going good, a couple months later, the comic book market blew off. When things went to crap, a couple months later, now I'm seeing the same videos that we've been seeing on the sports card side about, red arrows shooting down, this is over, party's over, crash, sell everything now, it's all going to zero. A lot of the comic book content creators that I follow are now making those types of videos like we've been making on the sports card side for the last few months. So I'll be interested to see what the vibe is like at the Comic Con when it comes to stuff like that and just a general experience, period. Dustin, personal finance or sports card dad, sorry, Dustin, may be in attendance on Saturday, so I hope to see him for a little bit and chat. And then I know Reggie Collects will be there on Saturday as well, so it'll be great to meet him in person. It'll be interesting to compare the two vibes back and forth to each other. So I don't know. I may try to shoot video at that just for the hell of it. I don't know if I will or not. No promises on that one. But that's all I have for you guys and girls. Like, comment, subscribe. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below, and we will catch you guys and girls on the next one. Peace.